Hello, my fellow human light beings. Welcome back to the thunderwizard.com YouTube channel. And today we are going to, we're going to look at some really interesting stuff. But on the surface, it looks like 9/23 didn't happen. We were hearing from Hollywood for decades that 9/23/23 was going to be the end of the world. There has been and is a very intense astrological lineup that is starting today, which potentially impacts the government of the United States. It's really going to kick in tomorrow. But at least we know for now we're all still here. I'm still here. Jupiter is bringing a change of awareness, but don't let the silence fool you. Yes, we're all still here. None of us, as far as I know, unless other people have gotten, if spaceships came and have been taking people out, nobody took me away. So it looks like we're going to be okay. We're going to make it through the day, and that's a good thing because I wasn't sure if something was going to happen. And the reason why I was the most concerned about it was because I do believe that elements of the deep state actually believe this. I don't think it would have ended up in movies for decades now that September 23rd is going to be the end of the world, unless there's an element of the elites who believed it. And what's important to understand is that there are things going on under the surface that don't show up, on your news. So for all we know, something major could have happened. We just haven't seen it yet. But I'm here to tell you, I don't think that you should write this day off as a nothing burger. I don't think that's a good idea. Look, and as I've always said from the beginning, I have no attachment to any of this. If I woke up tomorrow and I found out that I'd been imagining ETs communicating with me for over a year, it would be a challenging thing to go through, but I would accept that. I don't need to believe any of this. I'm not a cult leader. This isn't a religion. But, the things that are happening are so incredibly bizarre. But, so the question is, 9/23, even from an astrological perspective, meaning Vedic astrology, that something intense is predicted to happen for the United States starting today. What that is, we don't know. It will probably be something that will have a massive impact, lasting impact on the government of the United States. Again, does that mean it's going to show up in the news, that you're going to know about it? Maybe not right away. But we do have a very powerful setup where we have the moon 9 houses away from Jupiter. And Jupiter is in Aries, so Jupiter is very fired up. So Jupiter is a priest. Priest is somebody who gives the truth. The usual demeanor of the priest, by the way, you should never ever discount the power of a priest. Never. The priest's job is to bring peace and balance and to give gifts and to channel spirituality to people. The priest is a reluctant warrior. The priest does not want to go to war. Jupiter does not want to go to war. But the planet Jupiter is what is preventing the planet from being destroyed by, an almost infinite amount of asteroids. If it weren't for Jupiter, there would be no life on our planet. Jupiter protects us. It has a huge electromagnetic field. and it is unbelievably powerful when it comes to lightning. The lightning strikes that happen on Jupiter are hundreds or thousands of times stronger than what we experience here on Earth. So when Jupiter becomes the warrior, Jupiter becomes Zeus, the lightning bolt carrier. Indra, Thunar, the carrier of the lightning, the killer, destroyer of demons. So we have, Jupiter is not retrograde, so that's good, because that's when Jupiter's really upset. So, Jupiter is retrograde. Listen to me. So Jupiter is retrograde, and it is in Aries, and 9 houses away from that is the moon. So what this means is that today there is a very real possibility that you can have a flash of awareness. Today is a day where truth can be dynamically revealed to the world. And so I think there's going to be some kind of revelation about the United States on a governmental level. Again, it might not show up on the news. It might just be intuitive. But it's really going to start to kick in tomorrow and the next day. Now, for those of you who want to say that 9/23 didn't happen, I mean, I've already gotten a few trolls have, come at me and called me names and, said didn't happen, whatever. We don't know that. But let's look at some things that people were talking about were going to happen that didn't happen, that actually turned out to be something. The biggest one is 2012, December 21st, 2012. That was, according to the Mayan calendar, was supposed to be the beginning of the new age, the new world. It was misunderstood to believe it was going to be the end of the world. And people were saying that there was going to be floods and whatever, the world was going to be destroyed. And 2012 came and went, and nobody experienced anything. By the way, before I get into that, it is important to understand that I do believe now, with the benefit of hindsight, looking back, there is definitely a faction of the elites who are extremely superstitious. And if the fires on Maui, when did that happen? It happened on Lionsgate, 8/8. They're aware of this stuff. They're more aware. Trust me, they are far more aware of astrological and astronomical scenarios. They are far more aware of that than we are. They have technologies that can look into this kind of stuff, far beyond what we can. So, and they're very symbolic. Most of you listening to me probably were not alive during 9/11, or many of you at least were not alive during 9/11. I was an adult, so I wasn't a kid. I was fully there when it happened. I happened to be camping in the mountains actually during 9/11, but I was there before and after and all that. And nobody really talks about it, but 911 was the emergency number in the United States when there was an emergency long before 2001. If you wanted to get the cops to your house, if you wanted to get ambulance or fire to your house, you dialed 911. So there's no coincidence that 911 happened on 9/11 and it was orchestrated by the dark forces. They knew exactly what they were doing. And remember, psychopaths do want you to know what they're doing. Psychopaths can't tolerate you not knowing. That's why Maui happened on Lionsgate, 8/8. Happened for a reason. 9/23 is significant. In what way, we may not know. We may not know for years. But trust me, we're going to look back on this date. It's going to be this date that something started. I mean, there's still some time left, and again, 24th, 25th is also, astrologically speaking, kind of a, it's a little hectic. So, don't breathe a sigh of relief yet. Having said that, don't be afraid. If you're following your path, you got nothing to worry about. But let's take a look at 2012. December 21st, 2012, supposed to be the end of the world. Nothing happened. Everybody said, nothing to see here. And for years, I was one of those people. Well, this turned out to be an absolute nothing. Except now, when you look into the position of Earth in the galaxy, as it turns out, the Earth, the Sun, all of our planets, and all of the star systems in our visual spectrum here on Earth have moved 73,000 light years across the galaxy. That happened on December 21st, 2012. You didn't feel anything. I didn't feel anything. Maybe some people did. I didn't. But, you can still go on to YouTube and hear astronomers, whatever the Tyson, I keep forgetting the guy's name whenever I need to remember it. Tyson something. The astrophysicist. He is, at least he was, not too long ago, ubiquitously on his Star Chat, cable TV show. He is on video saying that the Earth resides in the outer arm of the Sagittarius arm of the Milky Way galaxy. And if you go look it up, if you type in where is Earth, what's going to come up is that Earth is in the Orion arm of the galaxy, halfway into the towards the center of the galaxy. So something did happen 2012. The world did change. This is a new world. The sun is different. The sun used to be yellow. It's now white. Didn't used to be white. The sun is yellow now. So we can look back in hindsight. Something definitely has changed. From that moment forward, especially starting in 2001, but in 2012, people started awakening. More and more people started awakening to the lies and the corruption that has been put over our heads. So if you want to say nothing happened on 9/23/23, you won't hurt my feelings. Again, I'm not attached to any of it. But I feel pretty confident from this day going forward, there's going to be a shift in awareness and something's going to happen. What that is, I don't know yet. I still don't have any idea what the event is going to be. If it's going to be, I don't know. I still feel that. I still get tons of downloads telling me that that's coming, it's on the way. Could be any day now. I still get that, but I don't know, and I'm not going to waste any sleep over it. I'm going to still keep living my life. I still got to pay my bills. By the way, today is the last day for 923.thunderwizard.com. We're still here. So I didn't get, so far, my day isn't over yet, but I didn't get beamed out of this planet. So in a few hours, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this and change it. I mean, you'll still get a discount, but you'll have to come out of pocket for more of it. So if you want this, today's the last day to do it, like the last few hours. So you better hurry up. All right, so today I want to talk to you about, along these lines, I want to talk to you about the end of an age. And in the past, looking back in the past, what that means. Now, what I find very interesting, extremely interesting to me, is that we are finding out that our past is not what we thought it was. So what we've been taught, what I was taught in school, what most scientists, archaeologists, historians believe, is that human beings, as we know it, came into being like between 100 and 200,000 years ago, modern human beings. And we stayed incredibly primitive until right after the last ice age. And for some reason, after the last ice age, out of nowhere, people started learning how to do all kinds of things like farm and create buildings and technology and all of that. For some reason, we seem to think that couldn't happen. For some reason, human beings just couldn't figure things out. Even though, during an ice age, there was plenty of land and plenty of humans walking around, but from our perspective, they just couldn't accomplish anything on their own until, for some reason, after the end of the ice age. But what's now happening is that more and more archaeological sites are being unearthed. One of my favorite ones, I'm going to be talking about Gobekli Tepe, which is extremely interesting to me. But I haven't talked about it on this video, but I used to talk about it a while ago, and that was, I'm forgetting again the name because I didn't look it up, but there was a cave in France that has the earliest, as far as we know, the earliest cave paintings in human history, going back 30,000 years. Now what's interesting is that cave was completely, totally blocked off for 20,000 years. For 10,000 years, that cave was used by humans as a sacred site. 10,000 years. For 10,000 years, from 30,000 to 20,000 years ago, human beings went into that cave and worshipped, did something in that cave. Now, I've got some experiences as a result of working with my ET friends. I haven't talked about it, but my Hulu breath, in case you want to know where the Hulu breath really came from, I'm going to tell it to you right now because it's going to sound very grandiose, but this is, what happens when you start talking to ETs. It's, it's if you ever wanted to know what it's like to be on, mushrooms or ayahuasca or acid and you don't want to do drugs, talk to ETs. You'll end up into some really crazy places. They will take you there. One day, this was back when I was still in Florida, probably July of last year. By the way, I recently came across a snake. Whenever I see a snake, it means something's up. So that happened a couple of days ago. Actually, for the first time since I've been here, somebody stole my sandals as I came back from surfing. And then I saw a snake, so it got my attention. So something's up. But one day I was coming back home from the beach. I was in Florida and I was walking back to my house. And this snake, big black snake, went slithering in front of me and went in the bushes right where I used to do my ET work. And so I knew I was being called. Whenever I see a snake, I know that ETs are trying to get my attention. So, and I knew something was up. So I went and I did some meditating. And what happened in that meditation is that the doorway between the timelines were opened. And I was simultaneously in my, 2022 house in Florida where I was, and I was also simultaneously in that same cave. And there was a ritual going on, and I was the one leading it. Before I get into what was happening, let me explain to you what happened. Got to be 15 years ago when I started this channel. I typed in here the Hulu breath. So if you're new to the channel, go Google that. You can just Google that or put it into the YouTube and you'll see the Hulu breath come up. How that Hulu breath came about was I was training in the Taoist arts that I was training. I had also trained in esoteric Kundalini yoga, mantra yoga. I had come to the end of what I was capable of learning from the humans that I had access to. And I wanted to learn more. I wanted to get to the highest level of things, and I was at it at the end. I had just been kicked out of the Taoist sect I was working with because they were intimidated by the things I was doing, and so I got kicked out. Politics and all that stuff. So I was trying to figure things out, and I was stuck. And what I was doing is, in case you want to know what I went through to create this teaching, all the stuff that you guys are enjoying, all of the three-tiered energy practice of the Qigong, the Kundalini, and the Shin, the heart mind of the electric power of the heart. If you think that just happened naturally and easily, you're wrong. I did a ton of experimentation to come to that awareness. I'm sorry, there's some yard work going on, so forgive the noise. And I was, and the reason why it's dangerous to mix different traditions is because you could have a frequency and another frequency and they don't match. If they come together, they create this very destructive sine wave that can tear you apart. It can be extremely damaging to your nervous system and your energy meridians. And I was experiencing that because I was experimenting and I was taking different practices and merging them together and trying out different things. And I was in a lot of trouble, and I had this headache, this headache that wouldn't go away, and it was an energy headache. And so in meditation, I didn't know how to do it. I'd never done this before in my life. I didn't realize what I was doing was a form of CE5. I didn't know it. But in meditation, I said, if there are any ascended masters out there who can help me, I need a one-word breath mantra to fix my energy. And I listened, and very subtly, I started hearing the Hulu breath. I started seeing the visualization of the water coming down, all the things that I teach you in that was given to me in a meditation. And if I had chosen not to listen to it, I could have, because it was so faint, and it wasn't, the sky didn't open. So I immediately listened and I tried it, and it fixed my energy problem instantly. I then did some research on that. I didn't know what the Hulu breath was. I had heard of the Hu breath, which is the Taoist earth sound, the magical earth sound of the Taoists, but the L on the end didn't make any sense. I'd never seen that. I went looking for it. I couldn't find it anywhere. One day I just simply typed in HUUL into Bing or Google, and I just hit enter. And then I started finding out that was the original name of the goddess Hulda. Her name was Hul. And even at that point, scholars were saying that this is probably something that goes back into paleo, really ancient times in Europe. This was the sound for the Earth Mother for the earliest peoples of Europe. And I went, holy crap, I couldn't have made that up. And as I would chant this, I would be transported back. I would be transported back into that cave. So that's where this comes from. I almost never talk about it because it doesn't matter. I teach it because it works, and if you do it, you know that it works. It doesn't matter that it came from the earliest, Earth Mother sound from 30,000 years ago. So that day in Florida, when I wonder what the hell all that noise is. That day in Florida, when sorry, I'm really distracted by all this noise. Anyway, it's just somebody mowing the lawns, I think. So that day in Florida, I was called to go do some work, so I did. And I was transported back to that cave 30,000 years ago. Except I wasn't sitting among the the people that were chanting in that cave. That cave that's covered with the earliest cave paintings. I was taken back there, and I expected that I was just going to be sitting with them and chanting, and I wasn't. I was in front of them. I was seated in front of them, and I had been transformed into some, ancient shaman priest guy with big, horns on my head, like they wear the headdresses and all that. And I was in that, and here I am, and I am leading them. I'm actually teaching them the Hul breath chant. And what's so, if you choose to believe it, you won't hurt my feelings if you don't. But what's so incredibly mind-blowing about that is what that means is I'm the guy who taught those people that chant, which was then taught to me earlier in my life when I needed it. That there is no such thing as time. And so, you can wrap your mind around that if you want, but that's where the Hul breath came from. I don't know why I was talking about that. Oh, yeah, Gobekli Tepe. So that cave had been used for 10,000 years, and I believe during that 10,000 years people were chanting the Hul sound. I believe that they were doing that. And that cave, when it opened up, and scholars and archaeologists went in, and you've seen the pictures of it, the pictures of all, the hands. People use the paint to put the hands all over it, and they, the different animals that we know existed in Europe at that time, the cave lions and the bears and the rhinos and all the crazy horses and all that was in Europe 30,000 years ago. That when you listen to modern scholars, people will ask, why did they create this cave? And you'll hear really stupid things like, well, people have egos and they need to leave something behind to show the world that what. And that's absolutely ridiculous, because there isn't one cave painting of a human in there. Not one cave painting of a human. The closest thing you get is you've got some hands that people have, they chew up the colored dust and chalk, and and then so you see these outlines of these hands. But that means something else altogether. But there's no humans in there. The only depictions are animals. And you have to wonder why they did that. This was happening at the same time that the pyramids, this was happening at the same time. What happened to it? The same time that the pyramids, this was happening at the same time that the Giza pyramids were creating this protective aura around the earth. So at the same time that the shamans were in there meditating and channeling all of the earth energies and all of the cosmic energies and the energies of the stars to create a protective aura around earth for the specific purpose of trying to stave off. They were trying to prevent Kali Yuga. They knew that we were descending out of a state of consciousness into a state of lack of consciousness. They knew that. And so they were meditating in the pyramids to create this Earth defense system. And the defense system wasn't to prevent attacks. It was to keep the consciousness of human beings on a higher spiritual frequency. Now, of course, they couldn't prevent that from happening. But at the same time that all of this was going on, in those caves, these people were in there chanting, among other things, the Hul breath. And the reason why all of the animals are in there, and there's only one only one representation of a partial human, and that's when you get to the very end of the cave. There's a stalactite, I think it's the ones that come from the roof, stalactite coming down, and it was half woman, half animal. I forget what the animal was. And that was the Earth Mother Goddess. I think it was half like bison and half human, half woman. And this is the Earth Mother. And this has always been the case. The Earth Mother has always been seen as a cow. In the Vedic tradition, she's seen as a cow. In the Norse tradition, she's seen as a cow as well. The udders of the cow are the life force, energy, the nourishment of the mother. And so when these guys were going into this cave and they're chanting to the Earth Mother, the Hul breath, and all of the animals there, they're doing it to send, again, another aura surrounding the earth to protect all of the animals. And this went on for 10,000 years. And then somewhere around 20,000 years ago, that cave, there was an avalanche that completely, totally covered the cave. So that cave was left in a pristine condition for 20,000 years. Nobody set foot in that cave for 20,000 years. And then just recently, I don't know how long ago, 5 or 10 years ago, it wasn't that long ago, some hiker, because again, some rocks came loose, and he found this opening into the cave, and he went in, and he was blown away as he's looking at all of these cave paintings of all these animals. And he said, I wasn't alone in that cave. I could feel the eyes of the beings that were there, which means that this whole time that cave has been completely covered over. Lascaux, is that the name of it? I forget what it's called. The whole time that cave was covered over, it means that there were powerful energy beings who were continuing to do that chant to keep Mother Earth safe. And for some reason, that has now been opened because we're becoming aware. I'm saying this is because we are headed for another climactic or another intense Earth event. And so, having said that, the Earth covered it over. I'm assuming the Earth did it. Maybe humans did it, but it looks like it was a natural event. But when we talk about Gobekli Tepe, until the discovery of this in the 90s, nobody believed that human beings were capable of doing anything with any technology whatsoever until after the Sumerians came and created their society. For some reason, until the Sumerians showed up, human beings were incapable of building things with their hands and creating tools, and they were incapable of farming. They were incapable of doing anything until that. But then Gobekli Tepe was unearthed, and we find out that at the very end of the Ice Age, when people were supposedly completely incapable of doing anything, this is even more vast and more intense than perhaps even the pyramids. And this is only one of the temple sites in Turkey. They uncovered that one, and they thought, oh my God, these guys created this one temple site, and oh, this is really amazing. Look at these giant megaliths, and wow, how did they do that? And then they find out that, just that itself, Gobekli Tepe itself, is so monumental and so challenging. We don't even really have the technology today to build what they had. Just that one, but then we're finding out now, after they've done some kind of sonar things over that whole hill, that entire hill is covered with I don't know, something like 10 other sites like Gobekli Tepe. And when you look at what's happening, you find out that Gobekli Tepe is faced towards different star constellations and all kinds of things like that. And on top of that, the carvings on the giant megaliths are showing the sky right at the time of when, scientists believe there was this major cataclysmic event. So in all of mythology, we hear about the flood. The biblical flood that was taken from Sumerians and Akkadians and other people. I'm sorry, but the Old Testament Bible is just completely made up. It's pieced together from stuff, and then they threw in their own lies and twists and fantasies and all of that stuff. But it doesn't mean it wasn't taken from real events. When you look at the Enuma Elish and other much older mythological writings there and in other parts of the world, in South America and other places like that, you hear about these floods, these catastrophic earthquakes and floods and fires that completely, totally wiped out civilization. And they say the same thing. Atlantis is one of them. The myth of Atlantis is one of them. And similar to the Bible, according to the Bible, the psychopath Jehovah decided to wipe out all human beings because they were sinful. So that's got that, its own religious thing to it. But you find out from the Atlantis mythology that this worldwide highly technologically advanced society in one day was taken out with fires and floods, so much so that the continent of Atlantis went under the water. And the reason was because they had become drunk with their own power. They had become incredibly powerful. And there's always an association with magic. But I'm here to tell you it's not magic. It's not magic. What it is, as we talked about yesterday, it has to do with science, but science starting from a different assumption. As I talked about yesterday, modern science, all the technology that we have, including cell phones, computers, and all of that, that is science, and the technology based on it is based off the assumption that the universe is an empty place, that is empty of consciousness and life force energy. So when you don't believe that the universe and the earth and everything we experience, if you don't believe that the underpinning of all of it is energy and consciousness, then you have to only think about technology in terms of putting chemicals together and putting two things together and mechanical things, which is really all this is. I mean, it's just a mechanical thing. There's no consciousness to it. There are computer programs, but even that is, there's no consciousness to any of it, which is, by the way, why AI is never going to get anywhere. People are afraid that AI is going to become conscious. It's not going to become conscious. It's too mechanical. There's no understanding of consciousness there. AI is never going to go anywhere. So you can stop worrying about that. It doesn't mean that you can't use AI to create really nasty programs and create, nasty, bombs that'll fly through the air and, look for your particular face and blow you up. That kind of intelligence isn't the same what we're talking about. It's not conscious. I'm talking about the kind of technology our ancestors had was based on the assumption that the universe is filled with consciousness, and that everything that surrounds us is filled with consciousness, including the planets and the stars. The stars and the planets are incredibly powerful beings, and they are sending incredibly powerful conscious energy to the earth all the time. And what you end up getting with somebody who understands that and can tap into that, but is coming from a place of narcissism, that is called black magic. The only difference between the priest who is channeling the consciousness of the sun, the moon, and is able to create healing, and the black magician who is able to open portals to the underworld and create all kinds of horrific things. The only difference is the intent. The energies themselves are the same. And so imagine you living in a society where people have the power to use the elements. Imagine being able to, with your voice, with your intention, with your third eye, with your energy, being able to summon the elements. I was talking with one of my apprentices who remembers, has some remembrance of using water to cut stone. So somebody, masters the earth element, they're able to levitate giant stones. Somebody who's mastered the water element can use water to shape those stones. Somebody who's mastered fire, the internal fire, the spiritual fire. Somebody who's mastered ether, energy. I mean, when you have people who've mastered the elements, no, of course we can't find any giant cranes that lifted these giant blocks to create Gobekli Tepe. Of course we can't find any of the technology to create that because the science was different. They had a different understanding. And what we see right after the cataclysm that we know happened, I don't know, whatever it was, 13,000 years ago or whatever it was. Whenever we find, at that time, we find these kinds of monuments. And you see the pyramids in South America. You see all of these things. Pyramids all over the world, by the way. And they're all from this time period. Many of them, anyway. And what I'm seeing as I look back on it is that the survivors of that, if we want to call it Atlantis, go right ahead. The survivors of that who had this power are now going around the world trying to educate, trying to revive it. I was just watching, before I got this, I was watching something on the Irish mythology of the Tuatha De Danann, who, depending on who you talk to, that's either the gods of the Irish mythology or these very powerful humans who had all of these magical abilities that came and founded, the kingdom of Ireland. And they all come from the sea, and they all have all these powers, and they all have these special this and that. And what I'm seeing is the end of that elite society. So the question is, why did Gobekli Tepe, why did they bury it? Because the reason why this is so well preserved is because the entire complex of this huge hill with all of these different ritual megalithic sites that were oriented to different star constellations and different risings and settings of the sun and the moon. Somebody had spent thousands of years, I don't know how many thousands of years humans were there creating all of these different temple sites. Out of nowhere, one day they buried it. Completely, totally buried it. That's why we haven't seen it until now. Because some farmer was out there and he's out there with his sheep and he sees some thing sticking up out of the ground. If the earth hadn't eroded like that, nobody would have known it was there. Same thing with that cave in Europe. That original cave that I remember going back in time and teaching those guys how to do the Hulu breath. That got covered up as well. If that hadn't opened up, nobody would have found it. So the earth is releasing and showing us something, bringing things to the surface. So if we listen to guys like Graham Hancock, who I respect a lot, he's going to say they buried it to preserve it so that we would find it. Because when you decode all of the carvings on those megaliths, it gives you a star map of what happened right as the world ended. The cataclysm, the floods, and the fires that destroyed the world. I think maybe something else was going on. And I know that from this, Chaco Canyon in the United States. This is not the greatest picture of it, but I wanted to give the idea of what it's used for. So if you remember yesterday, we were talking about temples, and how since the light of the stars, including our sun, is actually a conscious being. When you know how to communicate with these energies, this isn't just bringing sunlight into a sacred place. If you know what you're doing, you will actually transport powers and beings and consciousness. So a deity will actually manifest if you create the right portal for it. Because light is a portal of consciousness. Light beings use light to navigate. And stars are portals to other dimensions, higher dimensions. So for somebody who knows what they're doing and has the ability, they can create these portal chambers, just like in Star Trek, the transporter beam. You can create transporter beams, and if you use the right mantras and things like that, which create the right frequency, the deity will show up. This is, by the way, what yantras are. It wasn't until the Middle Ages that India started making anthropomorphic statues of the gods. Before the Middle Ages, if you went to India in the temples, you would never see any carved statues or paintings of a human-looking figure. They were copying Europe at that time. Before then, if you went into a temple, you would find yantras. You would find these geometric patterns. By the way, what's the first thing that people see when they do hallucinogens? The first thing they see is geometric patterns. Geometric patterns is energy. Energy, vibrations, frequency, even the tone of your voice, any sound that you make, anything that creates a sound, if you have the right, you see this all the time with people who use those little skins and put sand on it, and you put a certain frequency through it, it'll create a yantra. It'll create a geometrical design. That shows you that that's a specific frequency. So people who've mastered frequency know how to do that. I mean, I've trained in the Yoruba drumming tradition, and you have to do that. It's not like going to a drum circle. People think that they go to a drum circle, they know what African drumming is like. They don't have the first clue. African drumming is incredibly precise. And each drum, you could have 10 people there with different drums and with bells and shakers, and everybody has to do their precise frequency. It might just be, then you got somebody else going at a different pitch, and then you have somebody else going dum, dum, dum. And all of these things come together and they create this tapestry that creates a frequency, and then the orishas show up. I know because I used to teach these classes. I would teach people to do this, and every time that we would get it right, it was amazing. You'd see people playing these drums, and then they'd start looking around the room like that, and you'd see like 3 or 4 people with really strange looks on their faces. And then afterward, I knew what was going on, so I wouldn't say anything. And then afterwards, they would say, "Did you hear children laughing?" Somebody said, "No, I heard a dinosaur screaming." Another person said, "Nah, somebody walked in and walked right past me and was playing the shaker. I heard somebody laughing in the corner." It's because that frequency opens a gateway for higher dimensional beings, ancestors to come. Our ancestors knew this science. They knew that the universe was a conscious place filled with consciousness. They knew that the moon, the sun, the stars, and different times of the year, like the solstices and the equinoxes, they knew that these were convergence points of frequencies and light and intention. And when you knew how to take these energies and focus them, you could do absolutely unbelievable things that today we can't even begin to imagine. And in all of these traditions that talk about this apocalyptic end of the world thing that happened 13,000 years ago, it was because human beings had become corrupt. They had taken this power and they had begun to abuse it. First thing that happened to me when I learned the Maoshan spirit fighting. First day I came home and I was trying to get my body into the posture that they had showed me to do. And I did, and I got this flood of blissful energy that came through me. And then in my mind, I saw this picture of a nuclear bomb go off. And then to the left of me, there was some entity, and that entity telepathically told me, this is how powerful this is. If you misuse it, we will take it away from you. This is what we're dealing with. You have the power to create life or destroy it. And because we are in the third dimension, it doesn't mean that we don't have access to these powers. In fact, the third dimension can focus these things. But what it means is that we haven't yet matured to the point where we can take this power and keep it and use it for true consciousness expanding purposes. We haven't learned to do that. And so there's been numerous times throughout history where our very advanced societies, when they get to the end of, and they've abused that power and it's now going to start destroying the world, the earth wakes up, the universe wakes up, consciousness says, okay, we're going to bring this part of the experiment to an end. And there's a cataclysm. So this is where we are, because the elites that are controlling this world are so psychopathic, and they have access to the worst kind of technology, because the technology they have access to has no spirit, has no consciousness. Using energy weapons, using sound, using microwaves, using nuclear weapons, these things have no consciousness to it. So even in Chaco Canyon, by the way, same thing happened with Chaco Canyon. Just one day, this incredibly powerful empire that was all over the desert southwest of the United States. And they had, there was something, I don't know how many thousands and thousands of miles the people who were called the Anasazi. You've been told the Anasazi are the ancestors to the Pueblos. They're not. The other tribes around there, including the Navajo and others, say the Anasazi aren't our friends. They're not the ancient ones, they're the ancient enemies. And they enslaved all the other populations around them. They enslaved the Navajo and other people. They had power over all of these sites, these megalithic sites in the Southwest. These people had powers where they could channel the sun and the moon and the stars, and they could take that power and they could do all kinds of crazy stuff. And they were so feared and so powerful. And yet, again, at some point, they disappear, and all of these sites were blocked up. The roofs were taken off, and the doors were completely walled in. They didn't bury it. They dismantled a giant technological, bunch of giant technological structures, spiritually technological, where if you have an empowered priest who knows what he's doing, and he knows the mantras, and he knows what intention, and he knows what day of the year, and he creates, stone has powers similar to crystals. They create something where they call in the power of the sun and the moon, and they use their mantras and they use their intentions to gain unbridled power to do things we can't even imagine. The universe won't put up with it. The universe has to bring it to an end. So they got rid of those people. You talk to the Navajos, they say, no, the Anasazi, they weren't us. They were somebody else. And they're gone. One day they were there, and one day they were gone. And so the people who dismantled Chaco Canyon were the other tribes who came in, took the wood off of the roofs and blocked up all of the windows and all of the doors, because they knew that's how the windows and the doors in the temples, the way they were aligned and the what they used and what they were built on top of. These things are also built on top of power places where there's access to other dimensions. And so that, I think, is why this was buried. I think that perhaps the last vestiges of the elite societies that we talk about being the Atlanteans and whoever else, that they had gotten to a level of abusing their spiritual power and their spiritual technology to the point where the universe said, enough of these guys. We are going to put them under the ocean. We are going to, all the stuff that went into creating those floods and those fires, which is very interesting in and of itself. And the people who survived went around the world. They went down to South America and they taught people how to create the pyramids down there. They went to Ireland. They went to other places where you have these mythologies of these strange bearded people showing up with all of these powers, and they teach the hunter-gatherers how to do stuff they didn't know how to do before. One day, they're just hunter-gatherers. All they know how to do is hunt and gather. And the next thing you know, they're building Gobekli Tepe. Well, I think they're building Gobekli Tepe because there's a handful of shamans and scientists who are telling them what to do because they're hoping to get their power back. And then at some point, they either start to get that power and they start to abuse it, and or the universe gets rid of them. And then the people there, who the hunter-gatherers go, we got to bury this shit. And they bury it. We got the cave in Europe where I think Mother Earth just said, we got to bury this. People they don't have the ability to know how to use this power. They're not worthy of this power. So I'm going to hide it from them. But now Mother Earth is bringing all of this out. Bringing all of these things out into the open. And what else is coming out into the open is they're still here. But the elites that are left, who are running this world, the dark forces, they have reduced their technology and magic to just literally mechanical technology. They are so narcissistic, they are so psychopathic, they are so divorced from their own spirit that they're only able to create destructive technologies that separate them. And yet they have the ability to do things like use HARP and all kinds of things we can't even imagine. Energy-directed weapons, stuff, again, internet, television, all these things, were designed to bring them more power and to control you. And now it's being revealed to you who these people really are. I had no clue. I had no idea. Go back 2.5 years, I had no clue that all of the tinfoil hat people were right. I had no idea. And now I believe in all of it except for flat Earth. Other than that, I believe all of it. Flat Earth and reptilians. Other than that, I believe all of it. And so this is what today means. Today means what is going to happen, even if there isn't any kind of physical event that happens. What today means is that Jupiter retrograde, ninth from the moon, is going to reveal to the minds of the world what is really going on. And we're going to look back. It's going to be from this day. By the way, there's some more solar storms that I hear headed our way. Every time we get a solar storm, consciousness gets bumped up. There's more revelations. There's going to be more revelations. I believe what's going to possibly happen is that Congress, which is now, by the way, there are numerous people in Congress who know what the real space program is. All the nonsense you're hearing on mainstream news, that's all lie. David Grush, all of that is a lie. Or it's a conflation, or it's a distraction. The recent, now mainstream news is talking about the Peruvian mummies, which I believe could be, I don't care if they're fake or not. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. But I think they're probably not fake. But what do the dark forces want you to think? I think they're still trying to figure out a way to come to the false flag alien attack. I think they're still trying to figure out ways to do that. So they still want you to keep thinking about ETs, but they're never really going to tell you what it is. And we're going to go, hey, ETs are real. No, they're not. We're just kidding. Oh, you say ETs are real? You're so full of it. But we've got UFOs and we don't know what they are. They want to keep you in that state of not knowing, because if they put themselves out there and they commit to saying ETs are out here and they're here to destroy us, you won't buy it. If they don't talk about ETs, then they won't. They're waiting for something to happen so that they can grab onto it and use it. So that they can probably fulfill that false flag. Anyway, so there's a lot of things coming. There was one experience I wanted to share with you. I think I've talked about it once, and I wanted to talk about it yesterday, and I didn't get to it, but there's something about the past that is coming back. There's some understanding and awareness about the past, the ancient past, which from the perspective of the light beings was just yesterday. But there's something about it that needs to come forward. I was doing my interdimensional meditations, and I was communicating with a being, and I can't remember what this being taught me. I write this stuff down, but it's so dense sometimes I can't remember it. And I asked this being where he came from, and he said that he came from Sirius B, red. I had no idea what that meant. I had heard of Sirius B. I knew that there was, the brightest star in the sky was Sirius. I think I knew that. I might not have remembered it at the time, but I'd probably heard that. Now, I did the same thing I always do. I said, okay, I just made that up. That just sounds weird and stupid. But I went and looked it up, and to prove to myself that I was making it up, I typed in, what color is Sirius B? And what came back was blue. And I went, aha, see? I proved it to myself. This is all a bunch of nonsense. So if you know anything about Sirius B, okay, so Sirius A is the star in the sky that we see. It's the brightest star in our sky. But if you look to the right, you see that tiny blue Sirius B. It's a dwarf star. Well, so I went, I am making this stuff up. I'm not talking to higher dimensional beings, because there's no such thing as Sirius B red. But I didn't stop. I kept looking and I kept doing research, and guess what I found out? That during the time of the Egyptians, during the Middle Ages, guess what color Sirius was? Sirius wasn't this white star that you see now. Sirius was, in fact, a red giant. So in the past, when they talked about Sirius, so all of the pyramid alignments to Sirius are not to big white Sirius star that we think it was aligned to this guy. And so now the pyramids don't work anymore. Whatever technology the pyramids were, they don't work anymore. Sirius B was a red giant that went supernova, and now it's this tiny blue dwarf. So that really messed me up. Not only was I not making it up, I couldn't have made that up because I had no idea. I had no idea that Sirius B used to be a red giant. No clue. And I'm bringing that up because, I thought about, well, that was in the past. Why would some being identify themselves with something that doesn't exist anymore? Well, one of the only things I can think of is that there's something about our ancient past that, as I'm saying that, I'm getting filled with energy, that we need to remember. And what I think we need to remember, what we need to wake up to, is the understanding that our universe is built on consciousness, and that we have the capability of mastering the 5 elements, which is why you still find that in the Taoist traditions. You still find people working with the 5 elements. But that there's a consciousness to these elements, there's a consciousness to light, there's a consciousness to the sun and the moon. And if we learn how to access these powers, the things that we can accomplish as a species are unbelievable. But we have to be willing to do it from a higher dimensional place. So as we end our time in this vibration of the 3rd dimension, we're going to shift up to a higher frequency of the 3rd dimension. It'll still be phased out of this. You won't be able to see it. I think this is where the spiritual masters exist, like Babaji, people like that. People who have achieved, what we would call enlightenment and have shifted out of our frequency. I still think they're in perhaps a 3rd dimensional frequency, but just above ours. And I'm not married to this because I believe it's possible that there are multiple frequencies of this, just like a rainbow. There's going to be different levels of it, and people will go wherever they want to or wherever they're meant to. But we can now begin to do our job being spiritual technicians, where we use the technology of consciousness to create the reality that we want. All right, so that's it for me. Again, 923 is coming to an end today, 923.thunderwizard.com. If you're new to the channel, go to the playlists on my YouTube channel page, and you'll see free exercises. The Qigong there is free. The meditations there are free. And do the interdimensional meditation, the free guided interdimensional meditations. If you enjoy those practices and you want to get Sirius B, if you want to get serious about your empowerment and your shift up, then I invite you to go to thunderwizard.com and subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. And if you don't like it, you can unsubscribe whenever you want. The reason why I'm continuing to do this, even knowing the possibility that the world's coming to an end, is because I believe very strongly that in that higher dimensional place, people are going to be doing the 5 element practices. They're going to be doing the Hulu breath. They're going to be doing the Qigong. Everybody's going to be doing it. Instead of going to colleges like we do now and learning how to become lawyers and doctors and things like that, people are going to be spending their lives mastering this conscious technology. We have it now. We can access it now. So don't wait around. Begin doing your transformation now, because who knows when this is going to happen. From the higher dimensional perspective, this happens to me all the time. They will tell me things like, something's going to happen tomorrow. And tomorrow comes and it doesn't happen. It might happen months later, it might happen years later. That's because they live in a state of timelessness. It's whatever they're trying to tell me is very important. And from their perspective, it's going to happen any second. But from our third dimensional perspective, it could happen tomorrow or it could happen years from now. So I do believe that this event is coming. I believe it's going to happen very soon. But depending on what we do will either prolong it or bring it closer. So don't wait around for it. And I understand why people gave me a hard time, but I never ever said anybody that I guarantee you on the 23rd the world is going to end. I never said that. But I still think when we look back on 9/23/2023, we're going to see that was a significant day where things began to change. Just like I look back on December 21st, 2012, and I know for a fact that the Mayans were right, that our world as we knew it ended and a new world began with a new sun on a 73,000 light years away from where we were. My whole life up until that point, I lived in an Earth on the arm of the Sagittarius arm of the outer edge of the Milky Way galaxy. And since 2012, I've been living in a completely different part of the universe. Same with you if you were born before 2012. And we're going to look back on 9/23, I think, and we're going to see that something shifted here. And, if the world economic and political structure is going to change, the first place that has to fall is the United States. Because the United States is holding up the rest of the world in this economy. If the United States falls, everything's going to change. And, the United States is this close from falling as it is. So we'll see what happens today, tomorrow, and the next day. Maybe something huge will happen. Maybe nothing will happen as far as we know. But I guarantee you something's going to be revealed over the next few days that we may not see for a while, but we will look back and say that was the day that everything changed. I could be wrong. I'm happy if I am. All right, so that's it. Get my books, michaelwilliamdenny.com. The most important book is The Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life. That's how people will intuitively live in 5D. Odin says Jesus was a coward. If you want to know why the Christian religion and all of the Abrahamic religions are made up by the elites to confuse and manipulate you. The two books I've written about extraterrestrials are coming to Earth, and Interdimensional Revolution. You can get all those at michaelwilliamdenny.com. I recommend that you read them. We all done? I guess we're all done with that. I don't take any questions unless you happen to be subscribed to the 90-day challenge and I recognize you. So let me see if I see anybody I recognize. No, I don't see anything. Okay. Oh, no, wait. Sorry. I got to go back up here a little bit. Cats and me honest feeling. I felt great and exhausted at the same time. Good for you. Aaron Azrael says, thank you for the 9/23 deal. That was extremely generous. I'm excited to watch and utilize your videos and put it into practice. Good for you, my friend. What else? All right, somebody else chiming in. Cats and me question. I want to create an existence of my own where I govern and rule as a god deity. Would this be considered misuse of power? That's a good question. I'll address that. If I were to tell you the kinds of stuff I do in my interdimensional meditations, you might think I was, very self-absorbed and narcissistic. Because what happens in the higher dimensions is not the way things work here. So, I still haven't shared publicly if what the ETs have told me are true, I will never have to share it publicly. When the time comes, everybody will know. turns out to be true, whatever they said about me, it'll just be evident. I won't have to say anything, so I'm not even going to bother. But I'm here to tell you that if I were to tell you what they told me I was and what my job is in the coming world, you would probably think that I was absolutely bonkers and totally full of myself. That's how I felt. I really resisted it. When they told me who I was and what I was meant to do, I really struggled with it to the point where I gave myself frozen shoulder. I damaged myself physically because my brain couldn't comprehend it. And one day, my ET guide came to me and very powerfully said, "You have to believe what we're telling you. It's extremely important that you believe what we're telling you about who you are." And I listened to him because I had already caused myself some damage. So I said, okay, I'm gonna stop indulging in being confused and afraid, and I'll just believe you. And so since that time, whenever I get a message from them, I take it at face value. Whatever they tell me, I take it at face value, and I say that when they tell me things, like I know I'm getting a direct message because I'll get a telepathic message from whoever I believe I'm speaking to, and I'll feel it in my body, and it will be like a feeling of dread. Like my body will go, oh. And it's not because they're saying anything wrong. They're saying amazing things. You are the most amazing, blah, blah, blah. And they'll give me something about what I'm going to do or where I'm going to go, and then my body will go, and I will struggle with it because it's a higher dimensional message. And then what I do when I struggle with that is then I go into interdimensional meditation, and I begin to go into, if you want to call it a fantasy world, I go into the realm of light where the conscious, the consciousness of the universe is the cosmic consciousness, call it God, whatever you want. And while I'm there, I begin to create the world that they've told me that I live in, and I begin to imagine myself doing the things that they say I'm doing. And the energy is very intense when I do that. I come back into my physical body and I go, I just don't see how. I just don't see how I can possibly be that. I just don't get it. So in your meditations, to answer your question, you want to be a God. If you go there and the higher dimensional energy is there, that means that the universe is encouraging you to do that. Now, I know something about you. So I know when you talk about being a God, you don't necessarily mean the same thing that I mean when I talk about being a God. Because a deity doesn't control anybody. A deity can't control. The one thing that no being can do is control another being. You can manipulate people, you can guilt people into it, but that's not the same as having absolute control over them. Everybody has free will. So if somebody chooses to be codependent and allow themselves to be guilted into something, that's their choice. But no deity, no matter how powerful, has the ability to control anybody. So I say that, cats and me, because I know that you like that idea. You like the idea of being able to control other people. You like the idea, it's coming from your insecurity. You don't want to be afraid. You actually are afraid other people have control over you. And so you fantasize. You have a narcissistic fantasy of being able to control everybody and frighten them and overpower them. And that has nothing to do with being a God. Nothing. That is a frightened little 4-year-old with a machine gun. A deity is somebody who channels love and channels spiritual power, which enables other people to become gods. So a true parent, for example, a true parent wants their child to be more successful than they are. A true teacher, Like, this is how you know a teacher from a cult leader. A teacher will tell you the harsh truth you don't want to hear, even if it makes you hate them. They will still tell you what you need to hear, no matter how difficult it is for you, because they know if you hear that and you apply it, you will become more powerful than they are. And every true teacher wants their students to be more powerful than they are. So cats and me, if your idea of being a god is that the people are always less than you and inferior to you, then you don't understand what that word means. And yes, that is a misuse of power. Any action of power that devalues other people is a misuse of power. So when I think about, imagining myself being a deity, what I imagine is that I become nothing. I literally become nothing. And I channel energy through me so that other people can take that energy and become something. If you're not doing that, you're not talking about becoming a god. Let's see if that answers your question or not. Is that it for the questions? I believe that is all of the questions here. I don't know, Erdwick, are you, I'm going to assume, but I don't want to answer your question if you're not subscribed. Why do I do that? Because as we've seen in the past, people who ask me questions who aren't subscribed and aren't doing the work, you always end up annoying me with some question because you show what little you know about what I teach. And that annoys the crap out of me, and then I get angry and I get snippy, and I don't like myself that way because I end up being too harsh with people. So that's why I'm not taking any questions unless you are subscribed here. Let's see. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. I had a dream about Thurisaz Mudra to protect myself. So if you want to know what the Thurisaz Rune Mudra is, you would have to subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Challenge, and you can look for that. It's a meditation with a specific mudra, and I believe that there's a mantra that I give to it as well, and that will give you the power of Thunar, the power of the Thurisaz rune. I had a dream about Thurisaz Mudra to protect myself from negative entities and building a firm boundary. I have been doing your content for a bit. Is it safe to take this literally? Yes. Dabbler Deluxe, are you subscribed? Yes. Doing 90-day challenge. Okay. And most stuff is going great, but my head seems to be a sticking issue. I've been telling you that. Haven't I been telling you that? You're too stuck in your head? That's okay. That's a normal human thing. Don't worry about it. You say, lots of resistance and crackling sounds. Is there a practice I should focus on? Doing Hul. Well, the Hul breath is the best practice there is for that. So you're just going to, look, you just have a very strong intellect, and, the intellect is not the mind. The intellect is the part of your brain that keeps you in the third dimension. So you're just telling me that you're a human being and your third dimensional mind is trying to keep you from going to higher dimensions. Listen, this is the reason why people do ayahuasca, why they smoke DMT, why they do, eat mushrooms. And I don't recommend people do that because it's forceful and it's damaging, and it's, you're forcing your brain to do things it does naturally. And you're technically not earning it, and you might have an experience, but more than likely you're causing yourself some damage. And traditionally that you only really did that once in a lifetime. As somebody's growing up, the shaman, if they saw something in your aura, would take you aside and say, we're going to do this, peyote or whatever it is, and it would crack you open so that you wouldn't be stuck in your 3D dualist mind. But that's all you're telling me, Dabbler Deluxe, is that you have a very strong dualist intellect, and it's just a matter of keep doing the practice. That's it. That's why I tell everybody to do the practice every day. And this is why I tell everybody to take actions that are contrary to your impulses, contrary to that dualist impulse that wants to keep you trapped. Just keep doing the practice and it'll eventually go away. The Hul breath, is the best one I can think of. It grounds you into Mother Earth. It gives you comfort, and she will lovingly and gently take you into higher dimensions. So keep doing that. Keep doing what you're doing. That's it. All right. I got nothing else to say. Thanks for showing up, my friends. I love you. We can breathe a sigh of relief. So far, so good. We still got technically a couple more days. We got to get through the 25th. And if nothing intense and sudden happens, then maybe one of you meditated enough to offset what was coming. Or maybe it's just like 2012 where a shift has happened and not everybody sees it right away. But I'm pretty sure we're going to see something. And I'm happy if it's something that isn't violent or destructive, but it's more just an awakening and awareness. Maybe, some of the dark force people are brought out and revealed for who they really are. I think that's what what's his name? I forget his name. Anyway, I'm going off topic, so I'm going to stop. All right, that's it, guys. I love you all. Thank you so much for showing up. And I will see you all next time. If I don't disappear, or if I don't get beamed up to the Starship Enterprise, I will see you all, my friends, very soon. I love you. Please take care of yourself. Focus on your joy. Focus on what you love. Take action on that. Forget about everything else. And I will see you wherever I see you next. Have a good one.